Members, if I say this bill is really simple, I in absolutely no way want anyone to think that myself or anyone else that's talking about this subject matter is underemphasizing the importance and the seriousness, Mr. Speaker, of life. Mr. Speaker, if we regard human life at its most basic level, one that consists of a beating heart, then the legal protection we provide for human beings that are already born really ought to be extended to those that are yet to be born. We've heard all sorts of different approaches to what this bill's really trying to do, and ideas and suppositions and suspect and all kinds of things. And one of those was, well, you're really just trying to overturn Roe versus Wade and different things like that. I will tell you that Roe versus Wade, number one, it's not a law of the land. It's an opinion of a non-elected body of Supreme Court justices that gave an opinion many, many years ago. And for those who say that, well, we have Roe versus Wade and that's the law of the land and it's settled, I will tell you that really it's never been settled. I wonder, though, how one that with that perspective might respond if someone were to suggest, maybe say that Plessy versus Ferguson was the law of the land and segregation was settled back many, many, many years ago. What would have happened then? Would the Supreme Court not have had a chance to finally do the right thing and give the opinion on Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 and let all Americans have the same constitutional rights and privileges as the others? This bill doesn't change the opinion of Roe versus Wade. It attempts to save lives, not take lives. I hope somewhere down the road that it does raise the question enough that we re-examine what Roe versus Wade has done to our young people and women and even men, lives and minds across America, Mr. Speaker. We talk about decisions and how so many of these decisions weren't just flippant decisions that were made on the sly, and how important that these decisions are, and I'm sure they are. But Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you, unfortunately, the decisions that were made prior to the pregnancy were not well thought out, well-made decisions. When you've got young couples and teenagers, I'll just say it, having sex outside of marriage, promiscuity, illicit sex, the things that are really what we really need to get down to. Because really, Mr. Speaker, when we get to talking about this situation, we again, I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, we again are talking about a symptom of a very poor decision prior to the pregnancy. I will submit to you, Mr. Speaker, that society has lost its moral compass, and we're so indifferent to what sex is really intended for in marriage and matrimony and those things that guide humanity through the course of safety and protection. So many Americans' compass has quit working because they don't use it enough, Mr. Speaker. And I think a lot of them have literally thrown their moral compass away. And those of us who mention it are scoffed and laughed at because we're just old-fashioned, and gosh, nobody does that anymore. The idea of abstinence is absolutely ridiculous to some people, they say. But Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, abstinence works 100% of the time until someone quits using it. And that's when the problems happen. Society says, well, just go ahead. Everybody does it. I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, not everybody does it. And I will tell you that God's Word guides us to a proper relationship at a proper time to create a proper family that guides us through the safety and the pitfalls and the risk and all of the things that we're dealing with when we have to talk about abortions. I agree that's not always the case. Sometimes there's very, very horrible things that happen, and usually it's to women, but not always. And it does include the opposite sex, a man and a woman. And Mr. Speaker, for those who have gone through an experience of rape, I will tell you for the record that in my personal opinion, that is one of the most heinous, awful, horrible things that anyone could do to someone else. And as other representatives have mentioned, we have punishments that would allow the courts to take their lives away from them for what they've done to someone else, and I support that, Mr. Speaker, and I feel like that is one of the reasons we're having problems that we're dealing with today, is because some people aren't held accountable for their misactions, and we take it out on and lose focus and get distracted, and then we get to looking at unwanted pregnancies, Mr. Speaker, and we end up with some of the situations that we're talking about today. My bill has protections for women's lives and their health and safety. And I'm glad it does, because I care very much about those people that are in that situation, women. But I will tell you again, Mr. Speaker, that if someone has experienced the most horrible experience I can imagine in a rape, taking the life of that baby will not change the horrible, horrible nightmare experience of that rape. And usually it compounds it. And I would say that we should champion the women that make a decision to give life to that baby and share it with some other family and mom and dad. Is one of the greatest and most wonderful things a human could do. Mr. Speaker, quite frankly, aside from protecting the life of another human being, there's really no right to deserve protection as a matter of higher priority than the one of the born and unborn. Again, to be frank, it's shameful that we're having this debate this way. The fact that detectable human life in the womb is scientifically sound and is morally right. And now we ought finally to make it legally protected. Mr. Speaker, I yield the members.